This is a very important offseason for Tyler Stephenson and for the Cincinnati Reds, but the question is, what is his value? We'll give you the answer on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Steven Offenbaker. His name's Jeff Carr. We are lifelong baseball fans. We're lifelong Reds fans. We have been talking about this team in podcast form for a combined 14 seasons. We love talking Reds baseball. We love talking Reds baseball with you. On today's show, a little bit later, we're going to talk about catching the next generation. Who is the next big stud? How far away is he? What can the Reds look forward to at the catcher position? We've got that coming up a little bit later. We're also going to take a long, hard look at José Treviño. He was a lot better early on than anybody expected. He brought a lot of defensive value to this Cincinnati Reds team. But the question on the table is going to be, can he be catcher number one? And that catcher is very important. That position is very important because the question could also be, is it time for the Reds to part way with Tyler Stephenson? Is he a trade chip in this offseason? What is the value of Tyler Stephenson? We've got all of that coming up for you on today's show, brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets back to use across the app. Just download the FanDuel app today. All right, Jeff. We're going to get started with a topic that I am not super happy about. I am not really excited about it at all, but the fact of the matter is we need to have this conversation because Nick Krall has told us when guys are in the final years of their team control, in order for the Reds to remain relevant, the roster has to be churned. Trades have to be made. Guys have to be sent away to bring in new talent. Tyler Stephenson nearly laughed at contract talks last season. He heads into his final year of arbitration control, and the Reds are going to have to make a move. That being said, what is Tyler Stephenson's value? What could they even get for him in return? And is his value so high, Jeff, that the Reds should abandon that playing with him specifically at the catcher position because it's so hard to find catchers that can hit, and keep Tyler Stephenson around and risk just letting him drift off into free agency at the end?
There's a lot that really goes into determining the value of especially a catcher, because catcher is such a nuanced position. There's different things about it than any other spot on the field. So when you're good at one thing, there's other areas to consider as well. And Tyler Stephenson is a pretty darn good hitting catcher. He's the kind of guy that you can conceivably put toward the middle of your lineup. We've stopped short of saying cleanup hitter because he's tried that, and I'd say he's okay at it. He's not amazing at it, but he's a really solid, like number 5, number 6 hitter when it comes to, being a run producer and things like that. And then on top of that, he has become elite at, blocking pitches in the dirt, whether it be Hunter Green's slider, or maybe it's the split finger from Nick Martinez the last few years, like different pitches that really dive on him. Nick Lodolo's back foot breaker, things like that. Dude can stop it all. He's a brick wall back there behind home plate. He definitely has some area of opportunity when it comes to framing. He's gotten better at it, but he's still not good. And then he's not the best when it comes to controlling the running game. So all of that being said, there's some different things that kind of feed into this. But Fangraphs has a metric that takes his WAR and it takes, a bunch of different statistics and puts it all into a value, a number value. And really, it is tied to WAR. And because he was 1.1 WAR last season, they said that he was basically worth $9 million last year. Now, his 2024 season, where he was 3.1 wins above replacement, they said that year he was worth $24.5 million. So it's very possible that he understands this a little bit. And whenever he was approached by the Reds with an offer, it was not only was it nowhere near that, but it was very team friendly, to the point that he just did not want to counter it because he thought that there was such a huge gulf between the expected return he was going to get and what was presented to him. So the interesting part to me is that when you look at that and you say, Are they actually going to be able to fix that this offseason? I have a hard time saying yes to that. Like, that is one of those I'd have to see it to believe it type deals. And if you ask me right now to predict whether the Reds would sign him long term or trade him, I think it's more likely that they trade him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's really where this comes down to, but I no longer think that's the choice. I don't think that it's a choice now between sign him, trade him. I think it's now a choice between trade him, let him walk. I don't think signing is an option at all. So the question that we're going to answer throughout the course of today's episode, Jeff, is can they afford to trade him and be able to replace him? What's in-house, what's coming? That's why we're going to be looking at guys like Alfredo Duno a little bit later in the show. And we're going to spend some time talking about José Treviño coming up, because I am more inclined to, with this one specific instance, this one specific position on the Reds team, catcher, and given what's in the minor league system right now, I am more inclined to be willing to just kind of let Tyler Stephenson write out his team control and let him walk and go try free agency. Because as much as I said it was criminal that the Angels did that with Shohei Ohtani, as much as I've said that the Reds can't afford to let talent just go away for free, that they have to trade it and get somebody, if you're going to follow this Tampa model that Nick Krall has embraced, I think the catching position, as you said just a few minutes ago, is so different. There are so many things that go into that position that you're never going to go out in the free agent market and be able to get a guy. You're never going to be able to pay the money that would require. I think in this one unique instance, Jeff, I would be more willing to let Tyler Stephenson write it out and walk, because I think he's valuable. I don't know that José Treviño can give you on average a slash line of 261, 338, 426. That's what Tyler Stephenson has done in his career thus far in 6 big league seasons.
I don't think he can, but yeah, we'll talk about that more in a minute.
That's 6 big league seasons. That's really 5 years, because his first season was 8 games in that 2020 COVID year. So that doesn't really count in my mind for a season. But you look at a guy that even this year he had some struggles, he had some injuries, he played only in 88 games, but he was still league average of 98% OPS plus, according to Baseball Reference. Still league average in spite of all of it and the slow start and the struggle to get going. But once he got going, he got going. And you can look at, he was good, 12% better than league average the year before that. In that injury shortened season in 2022, his OPS plus was 133, Jeff. There are times where he just goes out there and has solid streaks of mashing the ball. I think you've got to keep that around. I think that makes him valuable enough that you keep him around and let him walk and hope that some of the next guys up coming along through the system get ready by the time Tyler walks.
We're advocating for hope as a strategy, but no, in this case, I agree with you. Yeah. We talked about bunting yesterday to end the show, and now we're talking about hope as a strategy. Oh my god! But I will say this: like, as much as I say that last year he wasn't worth as much, at least according to the Fangraph statistic, he was worth $9 million as opposed to $24 million the year before. If you take both years and you expand it and you look at the value for the last 2 seasons, he is the 12th best catcher in Major League Baseball. JT Realmuto is just ahead of him. Then you have Carson Kelly, Yainer Diaz, of course, Cal Rowley's at the top, William Contreras for Milwaukee's up there, Patrick Bailey, things like that. So, like,
do you recall where Spot Trek had him for arbitration?
$7 million for arbitration right now. I take that. No question about it. And I think that the other part of that is I don't think his trade value is that great right now because of his health issues last year and because of his lack of production. I think if you go out to the open market with Tyler Stephenson on an expiring deal, that you're probably not going to get enough back to make it make sense. So the best thing that you could do would be to let him play out this year, attempt to negotiate with him and hope that you can get it done. But if it don't work, it don't work. And he just hits free agency. I'm with you. Like, I don't see this going well for the Reds if they go the trade avenue, because José Treviño would then become your number 1 catcher. And as we'll talk about in just a moment, that isn't the best thing. There's a great offer over on FanDuel right now to get started, and that is if you place a $5 wager and it wins, you get $300 in bonus bets if that's your first winning $5 wager on FanDuel. And there's so much going on right now, whether it's football, you've got the NFL and college football, of course. Bearcats are doing well, and the Bengals are playing too. And then you can also check out the playoffs, everything going on around the playoffs. And right now the Dodgers are favored to do everything possible. So if you bet on anybody that's not the Dodgers, you're going to get a much better value on that, whether it's whoever it is. If it's not the Dodgers, they're a much better value right now over on FanDuel. Plus, you can always get into the in-game props of who's going to hit a home run, who's going to steal a base, who's going to get the most strikeouts, so on and so forth. FanDuel's got you covered all the way. And even when you're on football, you can do those props there for passing yards and rushing touchdowns. All the great stuff is on FanDuel right now. Download the FanDuel app. And again, new users with your first winning $5 wager can get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download FanDuel today. Thank you for making Locked On Reds part of your everyday routine. If you're an everydayer, you rock. And if you're not an everydayer, make sure you hit that subscribe button right here on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. We are free and available everywhere, and we're with you all throughout the off season. All right, Steve. So with the idea, and we do not think that it would make sense to trade Tyler Stephenson, you kind of got to ride this out for two reasons. The next catcher's not here, and he won't be here this year. And we'll talk about why that is in a few minutes. But the big thing is José Treviño is just not your catcher number one. And I don't think he could be in a year's notice. I think he's a fine backup. But when you ask him to step into the role that is catcher number one, I don't think he can do it.
So a couple things happened that skewed people's initial introduction to José Treviño. A couple things happened that I think kind of made Reds country go, wait a minute. Do the Reds know something nobody else knew? Is José Treviño a lot better than anybody thought? Here's what happened. The Reds signed him to an extension after trading for him that kind of came out of nowhere. None of us really saw that coming, but the Reds signed him to that extension. And then Tyler Stephenson gets hurt, forcing José Treviño to be the starting catcher basically from opening day, right? What does José Treviño do with that opportunity, Jeff Carr? Well, in the March-April combined statistics for José Treviño, a slash line of 323, 371 with a slugging of 508. José Treviño made the most of that opportunity. But then he began to kind of start crashing back to earth. In the month of May, he fell back to much more normal numbers. In 14 games, he had a slash line of 239, 250, 435. Okay, that was more the guy we thought we were getting when the Reds traded for him. June, he rebounded a little bit. He's like, wait, not so fast. I've got a little ball game in me. And in another 14 games, his June sample size, it bumped back up, Jeff, 295, 347, 477. We're like, okay, we can see a little bit more of José Treviño, but then he absolutely fell off the table. In July, 114, 158, 143. In August, 196, 233, 214. And then he finished out the year, September, October, 194, 194, 222. That's much more in line with the player that he is. Now, defensively, Jeff Carr, José Treviño is a baller. He is good with this pitching staff. He is good behind the dish. And given his potential to have the occasional offensive outburst with that good defense, I'm with you. A great, great, great catcher number two on this team. A great backup plan for when Tyler needs a day off or, a day game following a night game, things like that. Catcher number one, those numbers don't say catcher number one to me.
No, because it's so much more than just being good at defense. Like, you've got to be a bat that can do things. And just like you mentioned, it was a tale of two halves, like to the point that in the second half of the season, he played a lot less than he did in the first half. But in the second half of the season, he slugged 202. In 109 at-bats, he slugged 202. He literally had 3 doubles the second half of the season. That's it as far as extra bases go. And as much as he was doing things differently in the first half, and you could try to make the argument that he's closer to that than he is in the second half, when you put it all together, The altogether picture is he was actually worse at the plate last year than he was in 2024 with the Yankees, which whenever the Reds acquired him, we said, boy, if this is who they're getting, okay, it's something. But he wasn't anywhere near where he was in Texas in 2020, and that was a shortened season, obviously. He was an all-star in 2022. He wasn't anywhere near that either. And so there's a lot of questions surrounding him. If you were to give him everyday playing time, I think he would get exposed. And for me, that is why you go back to the point that we made early on, and that is that you have to have Tyler Stephenson, whether you're working on a contract extension or not, and you just end up letting him walk. Maybe you give him the qualifying offer, although that feels like a huge jump and maybe too much of a reach, but you would still.
I think he would take that. I think he would take that qualifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he would take that. So probably not. But the idea being you cannot not have Tyler Stephenson for this season.
Yeah, listen, I think, we should probably make mention of his 3.86 ERA out of the bullpen, Jeff. I mean, if we're going to paint the complete picture of José Treviño,
I don't like that stat at all. No.
He pitched. I'm not talking about his catcher ERA. I'm talking about his pitching ERA. In his outings out of the bullpen, a 3.86 ERA in mop-up work, Jeff. I mean, that is the value.
You were going with catcher ERA.
No, not catcher ERA, pitching ERA. You can't quantify and put a price on what he brought out of the Reds.
Two-way player for sure. But no, I look, I like him for what he is, but it's a perfect Chris Heisey scenario, right? Like for Reds fans of a certain age, you'll remember Chris Heisey, where it was like he was a great pinch hitter to the point that every time he'd come in and get a pinch hit that was awesome, we would all be sitting around just like, why doesn't this guy play more? Well, then he would play more, and then he would hit like 200. So
that's why.
That's why he gets exposed when he plays a lot more. And so I think that's the situation here. Like he is cast perfectly. And so the Reds need to assess that and understand that, because yes, there was an argument to be made about the Reds operating their roster the way that the Tampa Bay Rays operate their roster. And that is if they don't have a deal in place with a guy in his walk year, then they trade him. But if you trade Tyler Stephenson right now, number one, I don't think you get who you want back. Number two, I think you weaken this team too much. And so making José Treviño catcher number one is just far too great a gamble, and a gamble that I think they would ultimately lose, to consider trading Tyler Stephenson this year.
You bring up an interesting idea, an interesting scenario, in that giving Tyler Stephenson a qualifying offer. Mm-hmm. It would be around $20 million for a season. But if you need to buy yourself one more year to get one of the next guys we're going to talk about up to the big league level, could they do that? I mean, they managed to survive Nick Martinez accepting a qualifying offer. This could be a way to buy one more year of Tyler Stephenson, because I think he would take it. I think he would take a qualifying offer.
Here's another reason to let him play out the year and get to free agency, because the CBA is up at the end of this season.
Oh, you are a killjoy.
The economic structure of baseball is going to change.
There
might be a way they could keep him. And so if you trade him now, you lose that chance.
We don't know what the economics of baseball are going to look like 2026, 2027, and we don't know what new tools the owners might have at their disposal to keep players around longer. So you're absolutely right. That probably needs to be something we start factoring into the equation.
Yeah, because especially for this like multi-year thing, like this is going to be interesting, because like I like the idea of the 1 year qualifying offer thing, but that might not even exist next year. And there might be like my perfect world, and a quick preview of this, and we won't get too far into it because obviously we could do a lot more than just a few seconds. But my perfect world thing that happens to the economics of baseball is that they open up the max and the super max stuff like they have in the NBA, where if a guy is with a team, he has more opportunity to make more money if he stays with that team. that would be interesting to see. But yes, like I just don't think that. I think that because of who José Treviño is, that just reinforces our point that Tyler Stephenson needs to be here in 2026.
All right, listen, Jeff, I know who's not going to be here in 2026, and that's any of the Reds catchers that are working their way through the system. But there is some talent down there, and I think this is a good opportunity to check on who might be the next superstar catcher for the Cincinnati Reds. Got that coming up next.
Today's episode of Locked On Reds is brought to you in part by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right actually gets you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. You can put together a lineup of Prize Picks of your favorite football players, whether it's, Joe Flacco and his passing yards that I'm sure at some point will be reasonable, or Jamar Chase and his receiving yards, because we know those are always reasonable. You can check all of that out over on Prize Picks. You pick your favorite stat and you click more or less on their projections, and you just see your money roll on in whenever you're right. Put at least two projections together and you have yourself a Prize Picks entry. Plus, they've got great deals each and every week to help you find some Prize Picks picks that might help out your entries as a whole be right. Because when you're right on Prize Picks, you get paid fast. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's promo code Locked On MLB to get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup over on Prize Picks. It's good to be right.
If you can't follow us here on YouTube, you can follow us on pretty much any of the podcasting apps that are out there. We're pretty much on every single one. If you find one we're not on, you need us to be there, message Jeff. He can probably make it happen for you. We're available anywhere you get your podcast. And you may take note for the YouTube folks, Steve just had a little wardrobe change because immediately following this segment, baby, I'm taking my green Cincinnati Reds jersey and my Luck of the Irish to Dublin. I am heading out on vacation. Jeff's going to be with you all next tomorrow and then all next week with some very interesting guests. I think that he will reveal along the way next week, but I'm off to Ireland, Jeff. Vacay, baby.
Let him know I sent you, because you're following in my footsteps. Went there.
Yeah, you went at the beginning of the season. I'm going at the end of the season. That's great.
It's fun. Yeah, bookending the season with Ireland trips. That's not a bad idea. But yeah, let's get back to the catching of it all, because all right, with Tyler Stephenson and the conundrum there, the question is who's next, and the answer is Alfredo Duno. But the answer is not this year. That's the big part of this, because Alfredo Duno really had a breakout season last year down in Daytona. I mean, he went off. He said that his year was a slash line of 287 batting average, 430 on base, 518 slugging down in Daytona. This was the same team that Jonathan India did not slug that well, and people wondered what he would turn into once he was a major leaguer. And they always said, well, guys don't slug that well in the Florida State League. It's not a league where guys hit super well. He did. He had a 164 WRC plus, which is adjusted for like the league and all that stuff. So 64% better. In fact, only two prospects in all of baseball were better than him at the plate this year. And they are the number one and number two prospects in baseball. Connor Griffin from the Pirates and Kevin McGonigal from the Tigers. Those are the only two guys that had better years at the plate than him.
So he's still playing ball, by the way. He out in the Arizona Fall League. He has 2 games under his belt thus far. He's hitting .333 with a .545 on base percentage now. Again, that's a very
Not
small
too bad.
sample size. But I will say his numbers in Daytona, Jeff, that slash line of 287, 430, 518 has definitely, I think, guaranteed that he's going to start the season under the watchful eye of our buddy Tom Nichols up in Dayton.
Oh, absolutely.
He'll start the season in Dayton, and I don't think he'll be in Dayton very long, Jeff. I think it'll be a very short stint, maybe, the month of April in Dayton, and then it will be on to Chattanooga as they start to move him. This is going to be just his age 20 season. He's still 2 seasons away, not from the majors so much as being able to buy a beer. So, Alfredo Duno is still very, very young. He has a lot of developing to do, but I think he showed enough in Daytona to start the fast tracking process just a little bit. Let's get him to Dayton, give him a month. As long as that goes according to plan, get him on out to Chattanooga and let's move this along.
What will be interesting is how his catching develops with him, the defensive side of catching, because usually catchers move much slower than other prospects because of the nuances like we talked about with the position. So I'll be curious to see how that develops along with everything else. That it seems as though he can hit, and there's some people that are wondering if the Reds consider moving him to first base or something like that, just so they can move him faster through the system. I think that would be a bad idea. I don't love that idea.
If they move him off of catcher, I don't know what else in this system. I mean, Matt Nelson didn't pan out. Your boy Daniel Veoheen did not pan out. The two guys they drafted in the draft 2 years ago, right? They went catcher in like round 1 and 5, 1 and 4. So anyway, those guys aren't really making any noise either. Like the Reds have not really hit a home run. You know, talk about a team that's been lacking power. They've not hit a home run on these catcher drafts over the last several years. They really need for Alfredo Duno to pan out.
Because catcher's not a position that people deal when they're like if they are a prospect and they are any sort of promising, teams don't deal those guys.
Yep.
Like they deal catchers who are prospects that are almost considered like failed prospects, like to the point that they're not going to get any value out of them. So then you're talking about the Reds will have to be competitive in the open market, either trading for major league catchers or signing major league catchers. And those guys aren't readily available either. We remember years ago when they were in on a catcher that went to Philadelphia, and there was a certain trade that fell through because of a certain prospect that they did not want to give up. And looking back on that, Nick Senzel for JT Realmuto really seems like that would have been a good idea. But hindsight's 2020. So it's just not that common to see teams move off of talented catchers unless they're the Marlins, because the Marlins move off of talent just period. So whatever. But I really feel like they've got to make sure that Alfredo Duno develops as a catcher, however long that takes. And they cannot, and they usually do not like look at their major league situation and force a prospect situation based on what's going on in the major leagues. But at the same time, that probably means he's not ready for 2027. And if he is, it's going to be a little bit surprising.
We could be talking about cup of coffee 2027, I think. And then an actual, maybe he's in the conversation 2028. And I know you're like, God, that's so far away. He'll be 23 years old in 2028. Right. Like he's still just a kid, guys. So it's lean. It's lean down on the farm at the catcher position. So unless one of those other guys we just talked about that the Reds have drafted and have kind of fizzled suddenly catch fire, I mean, all of the Reds' eggs are in this one basket.
And that is where we will end today's podcast. Thanks, everybody, so much for checking out today's Locked On Reds podcast. We will be with you all throughout the offseason. And like Steve mentioned, I'll be with you tomorrow. And we've got some guests coming up next week as he's heading out to the Donny Shores of Dublin, and it's going to be a lot of fun for him. I'm looking forward to that for his sake. But at the same time, we'll be talking Reds all along the way. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, become an everyday, or if you're not already doing so, if you are, really appreciate you there. Now make sure you check out Locked On MLB. They got the league covered from every angle, as they've got Sully and they've got Locked On MLB Game Night. They are on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast, just like Locked On Reds. As for Steve and his Ireland shores and myself, we will be Locked On Reds every single day.
I'm going to have a Guinness, and then I'm going to have some Jamesons, and I'm going to have some more Guinness, and then I'm going to have some more Jamesons, and then I'm going to have some more Guinness.
Guinness is different over there in the best way. It is absolutely true. It's 100% true.
I'm so excited.